How Do I Music? A podcast by Well Nice Music.
That's exactly how I feel. It's, when you find a curator that you trust and believe in, then they can take you on any journey and they can suddenly drop in. You could be listening to a disco mix and they could drop in like a ragga tune or something. You're like, whoa, that sounds amazing. And then suddenly your mind is open to that genre where you previously might have thought you weren't into it, and off you go.
Coming in on the beat on this one. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing or rap. It's How Do I Music, your not boring industry podcast, and probably your favourite podcast on your feed by now, right? I think that's what you said to me. Yeah. And if it's not by now, then maybe you should subscribe and like, and then you'll, I don't know, hear it more and maybe change your mind. Something like that. Anyway, this week we are joined by Xanthe Fuller, the Senior Marketing and Partnerships Director at Mixcloud. She's got a super interesting background. Started sneaking out to jungle raves at the age of 13, worked her way to XFM, BBC Six Music, Radio 1, producing shows for the likes of Adam and Joe, Pete Tong and Marianne Hobbs. She's been at Mixcloud for a while now, helping shape the future of radio and online music communities. So we get into a lot. We get into pitching music to radio producers, why brand partnerships don't have to be this corporate, scary thing that sometimes we think they are. And she tells us some brilliant stories about those early jungle raves and meeting the Mixcloud founders in her early days. It was a really, really fun conversation. So thanks to Xanthe for coming on. And as ever, follow us on How Do I Music on socials and wellnicemusic.com to check out our roster of independent artists and the great work they're doing. All right, that's it for now. I'll see you on the other side. I hope you enjoy this chat. Name and occupation.
Xanthe Fuller, and I'm the Senior Marketing Director at Mixcloud.
Last time music moved you, made you cry or dance?
So made me cry, I would say, seeing Brian Jackson, who co-produced a lot of music with Gil Scott-Heron. Saw him at We Out Here Festival, and that was incredible. Do you want dance and laugh as well, or just cry?
Yeah, go for it.
Dance would be Bill Brewster, the DJ, came to Stroud, where I'm living now, and he played one of my favourite David Ruffin tunes, Walk Away. Oh God, I've just forgotten what it's called. One of my favourite tunes. I remember what it's called. And that had an amazing dance to that.
All-time favourite album?
I mean, that's absolutely impossible to answer.
Yeah.
So it also changes because my taste, the genres that I'm into, change all the time. So in the 90s, I was really into hip hop, and my favourite album would have been Low End Theory by Tribe Called Quest. But I would say the album I listen to most at the moment and have always found makes me happy and have always loved is Places and Spaces by Donald Byrd.
Explain what you do in 3 words.
Does the word two count as a word? Because I could say it in 3 words if two doesn't.
Yeah, go. I'll let you cheat.
Promote Mixcloud to creators.
Okay, great. Can you tell us a bit about your background, your story? Obviously, you've got a really cool job at Mixcloud, but it's not the only cool job you've had before. You've worked at BBC Radio, both with Six and Radio 1. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about the moment you first wanted to go into music and how you got to this point?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been surrounded by music and been into music very personally. So my dad was a massive jazz fan and my mum was a big classical fan. So I had those 2 influences. They were always playing music in the house, which I feel very grateful for. And then my sister, who's 7 years older than me, she was hanging around, I would say, a very cool group of people when she was at secondary school who were all DJs. A lot of them ended up actually getting signed to Ninja Tune in the 90s. And they were very into music. They were making her a lot of mixtapes at the time. And I used to go and steal her mixtapes, and I'd actually copy them onto a blank tape and then put them back so she wouldn't know. And I just lived on those mixtapes. I just listened to them over and over and over and over again. In my, I'd be like 9, 10, 11, and then, upwards from there in my teenage years. And those mixtapes, even looking back now, I just think, man, they were so good. So they were very influenced by hip hop, but they also pulled out all the samples. So there was a lot of soul and there was a lot of jazz and there was a lot of all of those genres that were, coming out at that time. When I started clubbing, me and my friends got really into jungle. So I was going to loads of jungle raves.
What age are we talking?
Actually, the first jungle rave I went to was when I was 13.
Nice.
So me and my friends pretended to go for a sleepover at my friend's house. We did this quite a lot. And I don't even think we really thought it was that naughty. But looking back, I'm like, I can't believe we did this. We would pretend to go to bed. And then once her parents were asleep, we'd get up and go out to a jungle rave.
Class.
And so we did that quite a lot. And I went to Jungle Mania. I was 13. It was my friend's, I think it was her 14th birthday, but most of us were still 13. And it was at the Astoria which used to exist in Tottenham Court Road. And it was incredible. Yeah, I've actually found the flyer for that night since and looked to the lineup, and it was so incredible, all the people that were on that lineup. So yeah, that was what was happening sort of musically for me.
What would your parents have done had they found out that was what you were doing? Would they be kind of proud or actually disappointed?
No, I mean, I've since told them about that 13-year-old thing, and they're quite shocked. But they have,
it is young.
It's young, but we were very innocent. Like we would go to these raves, and we would literally just dance all night. We wouldn't buy a drink. We wouldn't do anything. We'd just dance all night, and then come home at like 5 a.m. and get back in bed. It's crazy. But my parents were actually, I feel very lucky. Like when I was a teenager and I was getting really into going clubbing, they gave me that freedom, but they just always wanted to make sure I was safe. So my mum would say, call me at 3 a.m, I'll come and pick you up. Rather than, so I was really, really lucky. And that meant that I used to travel, when I was 16, I used to travel across London to go to what was then known as the Crossbar in King's Cross, because they had this night called Scratch, which was this amazing hip hop night.
Yeah.
And then I'd get back at like 2 or 3 a.m. and go to school the next day. Like, it's so weird thinking about it now.
You're learning early how to deal with a hangover and work combo.
Yeah, but again, I wasn't drinking. We weren't drinking.
It was just straight.
We were just literally there for the music. So in many ways, we were just so innocent, but we were like lapping up the culture. So
yeah, amazing.
Living in London, I feel very lucky for that as well.
So what was your first music job then? So did you start going into it around that time, or was it later on?
No.
Did you always think I was going to go into music as a career at this point?
No, I didn't actually. I was really into drama and acting at this point. Right. So then, I went to university and did my degree, always with this view of like maybe going to drama school or something. And then sort of fell out of love with that when I was at uni. And then that left me a bit rudderless, I think. Didn't really know what to do next. So when I left uni, sort of asked around for advice and ended up doing some work experience in working in TV for a while. So I did TV for about 2 to 3 years, but it just I wasn't really enjoying it. It didn't sit right with me. And I realized it was because I wasn't passionate about TV, and I didn't actually watch much TV. I was just always listening to music and going to clubs and raves and stuff like that. And didn't really care about TV. So it was my sister again who said to me, look, given you love music so much, why don't you work in radio instead of TV? And I was like, light bulb moment. And then she just sent me this thing. She was like, XFM are running this competition at the moment to be Christian O'Connell's assistant on The Breakfast Show. And XFM was like really amazing at that point. They had, Ricky Gervais, and Carl Pilkington. They had the Adam and Joe show. They had had half of Six Music was on XFM, Lauren Laverne, Sean Keaveney, and so on. So they'd put out these questions to be this assistant that you had to fill out. And I just was in a really silly mood and just wrote ridiculous answers to all of their questions. Just really sort of took the piss. Like I remember one of the questions was, what song would you play at your funeral? And I put, I don't know if you can swear on this, but I thought,
you can. Yeah,
I would have Nas, Life's a Bitch Until You Die, until I get high. And so it's just this like stupid thing. So anyway, they called me up and they were like, you've missed the deadline, but we really loved your answers. So do you want to just come on the show anyway? And we'll give you can come and do work experience with us. So
nice.
Yeah, so I was really lucky. So I was then like working.
Well, that shows going for the formal corporate route in this. That's not what they're looking for. They actually want entertainment.
Yeah, they wanted like
Ricky Gervais, Adam and Joe. They're not your straight down the road content formats, are they? So
no, exactly. So I think I was, again, it was pretty lucky, but I was temping at the time. So I was working all day in an office, but getting up at 4 a.m. and going and doing the breakfast show on XFM. So working from 4 a.m. till I think it was like 8:30 a.m. and then getting a tube over to the office I was working with and doing a full day's work. So you can only really do that when you're like, I think I was about 24, 25 at that point. But yeah, that's how it started. I was doing work experience for ages. And then gradually little bits, they started training me to sort of how to edit and produce. And then eventually this opportunity came up. And I think I was doing little bits of like shadowing and freelance on some of the shows. And then this space came up to produce the Adam and Joe show.
Right.
And that was crazy for me because as a student, I'd watched the TV show religiously. So I was like, I can't believe I loved Adam and Joe. So that was, and then I just started getting more and more work through XFM.
I was obsessed with that show on Six Music for years. I was young when it was coming out, but my brother was 7 years older than me, and we used to listen to it pretty much every day, and the podcast as well, from the journey from work and for me college.
Yeah, so we launched their first podcast on XFM together. Wow. That was me with Adam and Joe, and then when they went to Six Music, that was them and Sean Keaveney that helped me get across to Six Music, and then I worked on their show on Six Music as well. Yeah,
great.
Love that show as well. It's incredible.
So were they the main people that inspired your early radio career, do you think? Or did you have a mentor in that way that was training you up, or was it just everyone you were working with?
Yeah, no, there was no one training me up. And I would say when I first produced the Adam and Joe show, I reckon I'm pretty bad at it. Because I'd never done it before, so I didn't know what was involved. And I mean, Adam used to even joke that I was like not a very good producer.
That's nice. That's reassuring.
Yeah. But I got on really well with them, and that's quite a big part of it. So luckily that worked. But yeah, there was no one training me. I was just picking it up. And I think like the main thing I was learning was that as the producer, your main skills have to be, you have to figure out how to get on with the talent, but at the same time also have enough mutual respect that they will do what you ask them to do when you need them to do something. So, and it's quite hard when you've got these like very talented, very big names to navigate that sometimes. But yeah.
How much of these shows were pre-recorded versus on air live with Adam and Joe and what you were doing? Were most of them edited and put out, or?
So a lot of people ask me, what does it involve being a radio producer? And I always say it completely depends on the show as to what you're doing. So for some shows, I would be doing so much stuff. Like I produced Pete Tong on Radio 1, and I was doing a huge amount of listening to new tunes, helping filter music to him, editing big parts of the show because a lot of it was pre-recorded. When I did Jamie Cullum's show on Radio 2, jazz show, for that I was recording all the interviews with artists and editing them. I was going down to Maida Vale and recording the live sessions, which was incredible, and then helping to write the script. So, really hands-on. But then someone like Marianne Hobbs, who I produced on Radio 1, she loved doing most of it herself. So she would do all of the music sourcing, and I don't think she wrote a script, but yeah, all of the planning of the show. I would be helping filter music to her as well. But a big part of what I would be doing with her was the live show direction. So that would be more like telling her how much time she had left, the more sort of like directing the studio rather than editing a show. So yeah, Adam and Joe, likewise, they did most of the planning. For that was more like a technical role. So it was sometimes doing stuff on the desk or taking calls or sifting through text and helping choose the best ones.
Did you have a preference as to which way you lean? Do you like to have more creative decisions, and you're like, actually, I want to be able to choose the next track, however, it's Marianne Hobbs. I'll let her do her thing.
It's definitely, yeah, I sort of had mixed feelings because there was always part of me that wanted to be doing something more creative when I wasn't able to do anything creative. But then usually in those scenarios, I was working with people who were so impressive that I loved being around them and just, soaking up what they were able to do. But I did go on to do my own radio show just because I wanted to like scratch that itch of, yes, being able to play my own tunes. And
Yeah, for sure. And that was on Soho Radio, right?
yeah, that's
In London.
right. Yeah. So that was really fun. Unfortunately, I ended up well, not unfortunately, it's great, but I ended up having 2 kids very close together in age, and that meant I just couldn't keep it going because it was a lot of work. But yeah, I loved doing the
When they're old enough, bring them onto the show. Where
Yeah.
let them do the talky talk. You select the tunes, make it a family affair.
Good idea.
So how did that transition from radio to what you do at Mixcloud happen?
Yeah, so I did. I was doing the radio for years. I then ran a radio station that was one of the earliest online radio stations. It sort of launched around the same time as NTS. So I was doing that, and then back to Radio 1 again. But then this Mixcloud, I'd always. Do you know what? That's why I mentioned it actually. When I was running that station, we started using Mixcloud to upload all our shows, and Mixcloud was very young, had only just been launched. So we were early adopters. And when it was launched, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so incredible. There's this website that literally answers this very real problem that I have personally, which is my main way of consuming music was through DJ mixes. But at the time, I would literally, friends of mine would be coming around with hard drives and would be swapping the MP3s that we had or WAVs that we had of DJ mixes. Or we would be trying to send them via like You Send It or these websites that like a bit like what's WeTransfer now. There was like these older versions of that. And it was just really clunky. It was really hard to share DJ mixes. So suddenly there was Mixcloud where everyone can just put them up there. You can listen really easily. So I was always really excited about it as a platform. And because we were early adopters and we were in Shoreditch, which is where Mixcloud was based, one of the founders, Nikhil, actually came round to meet me when I was running the station and to say like, oh, you guys are using Mixcloud, it's really exciting. And we had this meeting and that's kind of how we first met. And then when my station got shut down, the people that set it up didn't really have enough money to keep running it, as happens to so many radio stations. When that got shut down, I actually went to Nikhil and said, oh, I'm freelance now and I'd love to work with Mixcloud in some capacity if there is ever a way. And after that, he would sort of get in touch now and then for these just random jobs where they needed someone to like record audio for them or just little bits of work. And I just like kept checking in with them over the years because I was like, the company.
You like these people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this job came up and of head of community. And it was just at a point where I was wondering whether to stay at Radio 1. And Nikhil sort of came and spoke to me about this role. And he said to me, do you want to work in current radio or the future of radio?
Nice.
So it's quite
That's
funny.
A good pitch.
So so that's when I decided to change.
Walk us through a typical day. Is there a typical day at Mixcloud?
So when I originally joined, it was to try and help get DJs using the platform. So sort of using my contacts or using my ability to connect with DJs to convince them to use Mixcloud and then to help them to grow once they were on the platform. But then a few years ago, we decided to change the whole team and turn it into a marketing team. So suddenly I was like running a marketing team. So yet again, learning on the job.
Well, that's the classic. It's so funny what you fall into and how quickly you do just end up being like, okay, I've got to do this now.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. So, so my day-to-day now, I've got a really great team working. So a lot of my job is sort of overseeing all the work that they do, mentoring, giving feedback on work, suggesting ways of changing work, ensuring that our brand is really consistent, thinking about what we want our brand to be and the messaging around that. And then working very closely with the founders. So there's currently 2 founders running the company, and one of them's the CEO. But we sit on a senior leadership team, so I sort of have a lot of conversations with them about like what should the strategy be for the company, and how does the marketing team feed into that, and so on.
So you mentioned earlier that part of the pitch was, do you want to be the future of radio, or involved in the future of radio? What do you think the future of radio is? Do you think that the old format as it was, DAB and FM played live, do you think that's going to last?
It's hard because I hope it does, because I think it definitely serves its function, and I think that the BBC is still incredible. Its output is still incredible, so I would never want that to go away. But I think that online radio is very exciting too, and I've always felt like online radio, in many ways, replaced pirate radio as like the hotbed for new talent. And I love how accessible it is. I love how anyone can do it and try it, and anyone can end up presenting a show and explore that, or producing a show. And I also think that radio stations, when done well, they can be like little community hubs. And, given we've lost loads of community centres and places for young people to gather, radio stations are a place for inspiration, where young people can get together and hang out as well in a social way. So I think they serve such an important function. But so in terms of the future, I hope that both keep coexisting as much as possible.
I think it's interesting you mentioned there the kind of cultural influence of a local radio station and what they would have, but you also have places like Mixcloud and, in fear of raising a competitor, SoundCloud and stuff, where you have communities that exist online around niches, around genres that aren't connected geographically, in the same way a local radio station would be, but that does cultivate a whole kind of scene and stuff. I remember getting into a genre called Witch House in my teens, which is insane. It's not house, it's not Four on the Floor. It's like really shouty. I think the Crystal Castles could kind of be called Witch House. Obviously they're not cool by any means anymore, but very like trap distortion, horrible to really spooky. And I remember looking into where this scene existed and where there would be live gigs, and it was essentially like warehouses in Eastern Europe, and it's probably not the kind of gig you'd want to go to in terms of good times and fun. But I really got into the scene. I thought it was really interesting, and that wouldn't happen here. I wouldn't be able to find that in Brighton.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I was talking about the in real life communities, but when it comes to platforms like Mixcloud, that's for me what the most exciting part of it is the communities are, for me, what's most exciting about Mixcloud, because it's global, and so you can have people all around the world connecting around the most niche genres, and then you have live chat during live streams where these really strong communities form. And we've had some amazing stories come out, from speaking to creators who have developed these communities around their shows or around certain genres, talking about also how much more accessible it is. So, you've got people with disabilities who couldn't go to real clubs, but can join live streams and can join live stream chats and then become part of a community. There's this one example of a guy who wrote in to say that he'd become really depressed and really lonely. And it wasn't until he found this live stream and this community around it that welcomed him in as soon as he joined, that it really turned him around and made him a lot happier. So yeah, the online community, that again, when Mixcloud first started, when I first found it, that was one of the things that excited me the most. Was I was like, whoa, I can hear a radio show for anywhere around the world, or a DJ mix, uploaded anywhere around the world. And it's also really exciting when you upload and you look at your stats and you see, oh my gosh, there's people listening to me in Romania. There's people, it's like, whoa, how did they find this?
I think that's really cool as well, being able to tap into different scenes that you wouldn't, again, without actually going out there looking for them, you might not come across yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that I have made a conscious effort to be curated music again by people, because Spotify and the algorithm has made it very easy to just stay in a cycle of stuff that I'll enjoy, but I want someone to plonk me somewhere else and
That's
go, oh, this
exactly
is
it.
a new scene that I hadn't even thought about and I really do like it. Whereas you end up in this algorithmic cycle, basically.
Echo chamber. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Echo chamber of your own taste. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly how I feel. It's, when you find a curator that you trust and believe in, then they can take you on any journey and they can suddenly drop in. You could be listening to a disco mix and they could drop in like a ragga tune or something. You're like, whoa, that sounds amazing. And then suddenly your mind is open to that genre where you'd previously might have thought you weren't into it, and off you go. So I think that's the key with Mixcloud, is that we've got humans at the center of it, and people. It's about those humans guiding your taste, but also the human to human connections that you can make on the platform.
What has been the biggest shift that you've seen during your time at Mixcloud, or maybe incorporate your time at radio as well? What's the biggest industry shift you've seen in your time?
There's been a few. I mean, there's been waves, obviously around COVID. So much changed.
COVID,
yeah,
sure.
The obvious answer, but everyone's gigs stopped happening. Artists started making loads more music during that time because they were at home. So that was quite exciting in that way. Keep saying exciting. It sounds like I'm like excited all the time.
Well, that's a good disposition.
Very positive right now. Probably had too much coffee. But it was a really interesting time for us because people weren't able to do gigs, and so we'd been talking for years about launching the ability to live stream on Mixcloud. And when lockdown happened, we just were like, well, let's speed that up. And so we launched it, and it was just huge. Like, people just really jumped on it. It was an example of really good timing. So for us personally, that really changed Mixcloud and how it works. Like, we used to originally we were an advertising-based model. So we'd sell ads and that's how we would sustain ourselves. And then we would do brand partnerships, but that all went dead during COVID because brands weren't spending money. Yeah. So suddenly we became a subscription model overnight through launching live and tying it into that. So that was a big shift for us.
So we have a tradition on this podcast to ask you who else in the industry has a good story to tell that might be interested in coming onto the podcast.
The only thing I would say with this is it's hard not to either find a BBC producer or someone I've worked with at Mixcloud, so I don't know if that's all too similar. But I would say Nikhil, who is one of the founders of Mixcloud, he's a pretty interesting guy. He's done so much stuff, and he has stepped away from Mixcloud now and has launched his own chime making product, and done loads throughout. Like, he used to run a record label, he used to put on warehouse parties, so he's a really good person to talk to.
So throughout your career, when people have been pitching music to you in your various positions at radio and maybe at Mixcloud too, what are the do's and don'ts that you could reel off in terms of the pitches you've seen? What are the best pitches? What are the worst pitches? Or is it all just down to the music and you could say whatever you want?
So with tunes, and this would be more when I was a radio producer than now, on certain shows, you're just getting flooded with so much music, which is great, but it's hard to get through it all. So I would say the number one rule is make it as easy as possible to hear that tune immediately. So if it is like, go here, download it here, write a comment, blah, 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 all of that just like adds layer, when you're that time poor, that just adds too much complication. So if you can just click and hear it immediately, that's a big win. A very clear description, any communication, I would say, when you're pitching a project or music, the more concise and minimal you can be in your communication, the better. So just like one sentence, never send paragraphs in an email because it's just not going to be read. Yeah, and it puts you off. You're like, when you see that, you're like, oh, I haven't got time to read that. And, so where it's just literally like, you should hear this and a link. And then you're like, okay, I can handle that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but then when it comes to actually choosing music, I always found this really interesting because you'd hear tune after tune after tune. And you'd get to a point where you start like doubting yourself and thinking, do I even know what's good anymore? Do I even have I lost my sense of, taste? And then you'll just suddenly hear a tune that would just stand out and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a really good tune. And it was always, it's just instinctive. It's weird. Just really tell when it's a good tune.
You start doubting your taste and then you realise, no, it is the music I've been listening to for the last hour. It just hasn't stood out yet. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Exactly. It's just like you hear the same generic house track over and over and over again. And then you suddenly hear someone that's like done something slightly original. And it really stands out.
I think it's interesting. I've not worked on the radio side dealing with as many pitches you're going to be dealing with in that circumstances, and it is interesting to me to have to deal with that volume of music. It's just and make a quick decision. Are you not? Surely you're not even going through the full song, are you? Are you trying to? And then
no, usually I would listen to the first bit, skip to the middle, see where it's building to, skip to the end. And then if it's piqued my interest, then I'll go back and I'll listen more thoroughly.
Yeah, okay.
And then if I'm really interested, I'll properly listen to it all the way through.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Mixcloud then? So if someone's pitching a project to you at Mixcloud, do's and don'ts.
Yeah. So again, what absolute first do is just minimal information in the first message. So, and just like, it's a real skill to be able to narrow your pitch down to like one sentence and just get someone's interest. And because you can always give them more information once they're interested, but they're not gonna sit and read loads of information if you just send it off the bat. Yeah. And this is something that we also do as a team when we're working with brands or reaching out to brands. We always pitch the smallest, most light touch idea first of all, and then form that relationship, start working with that brand. And then if it's going well, you can build on it and introduce bigger and bigger and bigger ideas. But if you go in with like, we want to do this, 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 and this, and this, and then people are just like, whoa.
Yeah. And to go in, they probably don't have the budget all the time to go diving in the deep end with you straight away without trialing out the relationship first.
Exactly.
Seeing how it goes.
Yeah. So I think with any communication, and it's, also I've spent a lot of years like emailing DJs who are very, very busy and never read emails. Not never, that's a bit of a generalization, but it's harder to get.
Rarely.
So it's like, how do I get this information across? How do I just like in their tone that, it's going to work? And it was always just literally just ask a one sentence question or find the one kernel that's going to pique someone's interest and just put that and get rid of any fluff.
Yeah, get rid of the fluff. That's the main take home.
Yeah.
So what do you see the future in music and brand partnerships being, or where it's heading? Do you think it's going to be more significant over time or than it is now, or any brave calls?
It's hard because at the moment we've been in a recession and brands have not been spending money in the way they used to. But I think when brand partnerships are done well, they can be excellent. Like if you get someone who's really culturally connected, working for a brand who really understands the culture and respects it and will treat that culture well and not, there's a fine balance. There's either like abusing the culture for the benefit of the brand, or there's using the brand's money and wealth to support a culture. And
that's a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah, and I think when it's done well, it can be amazing. And I've often thought, as I alluded to earlier, radio stations so often rise and fall really quickly because they don't tend to make money. It's really hard to make money as a radio station. But that's where brands can really come in. If you can get a brand like G-Shock Radio, G-Shock are doing it at the moment. They've got G-Shock Radio. Red Bull did an amazing job of it with Red Bull Music Academy and Red Bull Radio. When it's done well, then the money of the brand can really help nurture culture.
For sure.
So
it doesn't have to be this big scary thing where it's taking away from the culture. It's it can enhance and help
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Especially when music is, struggling to find its income streams. A lot of income streams are dwindling in one way or another.
Yeah.
So enabling accessing the finances elsewhere through brand partnerships seems more important than ever, I think.
Yeah. And, brands always want to be connected and cool and relevant. And then music communities often need the money, but they are connected and cool and relevant. So
yeah,
it can be a match made in heaven.
There's there's a really good book I read called How Music Grows Brands. It's literally the perfect book for this topic. And it's by an author called Rebecca Jolly, who's coming on for an episode soon. But I really recommend that book. It taught me so much about how brands can align themselves with culture and music, and how it's still pretty underutilized, that collaboration between the two.
Yeah.
It seems like how much people and brands spend on their visual marketing and rebranding, that side of things, all the time. And we look at how underappreciated it is towards sound design and that kind of collaboration with another sense. Then you do go, oh, there's a lot of work to do and a lot of education that can be done to these brands to go, you know what, you've completely underutilizing something that's very emotionally important to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who wants your job? Or wanted your career? If someone's young listening to this, what would you say to them?
So I would say, when it came to, I've always given advice to people around, if you get a chance to do a placement or work experience or an internship, then an absolute key, and even if you get a job, whatever stage you're at, the absolute key is to work really hard. Yeah. And I saw a lot of people go into work experience placements and be like, I need to impress, I need to be really in people's faces, or I need to be really pushy, or I need to, and that's just annoying because people are really busy and they need, but the people that always got kept on were the people that just got their heads down and delivered some amazing work. Yeah. So, and we're pleasant to be around as well, but really, just putting the effort in, being willing to go the extra mile, work a bit longer hours if you have to. I mean, luckily that, Mixcloud is definitely not one of these companies that expects people to work crazy hours or anything like that. But I think having a good work ethic is really key.
Everyone wants that pathway. It's so competitive. So unfortunately, you have to really bust a gut to get there in front of other people, I think.
Yeah, and have real passion for it. And then I would say also bring ideas and enthusiasm. And a lot of people, it's also what I sort of tell a lot of people when I'm coaching and within the team or whatever, is the next step in your career is to not be told what to do, but is to bring the idea, or even better, test out the idea yourself and then come with the results and be like, look at this has worked. Can we do it bigger? So people love people, so long as people aren't coming with loads of ideas that are really unrealistic and then getting really upset when they're not happening. Which is why it's good to test it first. It's like, if you really think, is there a really easy, scrappy way that you can try and test this idea out yourself and then bring it to the table and show?
I've always enjoyed workplaces where you are able to test ideas quickly and see if they work quickly and then move on, instead of discussing things for ages. And sometimes it feels like there's a bit too much bureaucracy between the time taken to discuss whether we should try it. We could have tried it and found out if it was crap or not, basically. And I think that's something I just think is a good rule. If you can try it with minimal cost and time, give it a go, find out, and then go, and then you get your answer. You don't need
and it's funny, being with Mixcloud through this transition from startup phase, where it really was a small company. There were 12 of us when I first joined. When a company is in that stage, you really can test quickly, and then the bigger you get, the more bureaucracy comes in, the more things can slow down. We're really at that stage of trying to say to everyone, speed up again, let's just test things.
It's an interesting dynamic though, because you've also got it's you don't want to test something and for it to be public and test something badly, and that you've got to have practices in place to stop embarrassing things happening.
Yeah.
But it's also you want the quick processes to happen as well.
Yeah.
To get the best of both worlds. What's something looking back at your career that you wish you had known earlier?
Always saying yes to things, even if they didn't seem that appealing at first. Because
is that a dig to this podcast?
Maybe I retract that.
I'm going to cut that out. Say yes. I only say yes to the best opportunities ever.
Exactly.
No, carry on.
Yeah, no, I remember I was once asked to work on a podcast about Big Brother when Big Brother was huge. But I just wasn't into Big Brother at all. And I was like, oh, this really isn't something I want to work on. Should I do it? Should I not? And then I agreed to do it. And I can't remember for whatever reason it didn't happen. But the people I met through those conversations then started offering me other work. And they ended up being the people that brought me in to run that radio station. So it was like a relationship that developed over time. And so I would say really like being open to opportunities. But the other thing really is like, don't burn bridges. Because, and I'm not saying that this is something I wish I'd known because I was very careful about this, but I've seen young people like come in and destroy relationships with quite key people in the industry. And I think, oh no, what are you doing? Because it's a really small industry and you will keep bumping into the same people over and over. And it's so important to just figure out ways of getting on with those people. But also it's so great if, because you make contacts, you just don't realize they're going to keep coming back. And then you end up working with them in different ways. And it's one of the things I've always loved the most is, who I bump into along the way, who comes back in and goes out and then comes back in,
I think it's interesting. I wonder if there's a kind of cultural thing with a younger demographic where there was a thing on I sound like such an old man. There was a thing on the internet about 5 years ago where it would be like you'd video you doing the best exit from your work, and it was a bit like the kind of fuck you moment and handing in your resignation kind of thing. So I wonder if there is always this kind of grass is always greener thinking where it's like this big fuck you moment, I'm leaving, but ultimately it's like, well, that's not actually beneficial to anybody,
really,
especially yourself.
It's really not. These people are writing your reference. These people are going to be asked by other people they know. So when you're young, I think you can quite often think that you're not in a great work environment. And then you could go and work in other places and think, oh, wow, that place wasn't actually that bad. Or, things can get on your nerves where you think, oh, this person's being so overbearing. They're really micromanaging me. They keep like I remember this one manager I had kept like honing in on my editing and critiquing every single edit. And I was like, so annoyed by it. But then my editing skills massively increased. Like I got so much better at editing as a result. I'm now really grateful for that input years later. Had I done, what I've seen other people do, which is like burn bridges off the back of that, I would have really regretted it because I think a lot of the time people don't know how good they've got it until they go and work somewhere else. And then,
I think that's it's interesting. I've done that with work before where I've looked back at a place and I've gone, at the time I thought it was annoying and certain people were annoying in certain ways. And I look back and actually gone, oh no, they've been so supportive and genuinely helped with especially when you are early on. Yeah. And I'm not going to lie, like, there's times looking back at myself fresh out of doing my music production degree and going straight into work, you are just not that useful for a bit. And like I can reflect on this now as someone who hopefully is quite useful, but I definitely had a period of time where I just wasn't particularly good, but someone was like, yeah, this is an investment and he's going to get good. And that is the case unless you're some prodigy in anything.
Yes,
it's likely you are that person early on.
Yeah,
and that's no reflection on you. That's not a bad thing.
No,
but that is just lack of experience. It is a thing.
And that's also another piece of advice, in fact, that I wish I had heard, which is don't be afraid to admit what you don't know. Like put your hand up and find the person that can teach you. And people love coaching. It's very flattering for someone less experienced to come and say, I don't know anything about this. Can you help me?
I think that took me way too long to figure out in my early career because I was too proud or felt like I should know everything. I felt like there was this weird thing where I'd just be like, oh, they're going to think I'm stupid if I ask a question. So therefore I'm going to stumble through it and probably take twice as long to work it out.
Exactly. And it's a sort of imposter syndrome thing. And you're obviously going to have that when you're really young and inexperienced, but people don't expect you to know everything and they'd much rather know what you don't know so they can help you upskill.
It's been really reassuring since doing this podcast, recording this, and pretty much every single person so far has said they've had imposter syndrome early on in their career. It's like, oh, this is actually really nice because you look at all these amazing people, you go, wow, you've done such amazing things, but every single person felt, most of them at least, felt that feeling at the start of their career. Where, what the fuck am I doing? I don't know.
I don't think it's only at the start of your career either. It's happened to me at various points throughout my career. Like when my team turned into a marketing team, I was like, I don't know anything about marketing. What am I supposed to? So that was huge imposter syndrome.
Yeah, sure.
But I have to be just really honest. And I have like a senior marketing manager on my team who's amazing. And I always just say to her, can you explain this to me? Because I don't really... So I think it's important when you're managing people just as much as when you're being managed. Just honesty and requesting feedback. We have a big sort of culture around trying to give and take feedback as much as possible and using that as a tool to grow. Part of that is owning up to your mistakes, owning up to what you don't know, and that being okay because no one does know everything at all.
One final question. We're going to have a song to play out the podcast recommended by yours truly.
Oh, yeah.
What is it and why do you like it so much? Assuming you like it.
Yeah, I love it. The lyrics are just so good. Like the more I listen to them and got my head around what he's saying, I just think they're so funny. And so it's not meant to be funny, but it's a classic old soul tune that's got hilariously brilliant lyrics.
Great.
So it's Eugene Records, Overdose of Joy. And it's something that makes me very, very happy. Like as soon as I hear it, I just feel happy.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. Thank you.
This man is suffering from an overdose of joy. Lucky fella. This man is suffering from an overdose of joy.
Thanks to Xanthe for coming on the show. Wicked chat all the way through. Super useful stuff all the way through. I mean, even just the simple fact of don't burn bridges might be one of the best tips we've had on there. Yeah. Take that home, write that down, tattoo it on your forearm and your head. Maybe not the last bit. Or the second to last bit even. Anyway, How Do I Music on socials? wellnicemusic.com. Check out our roster. They're wicked. What else can I say? Oh, yeah. That bit about Witch House, there's a Vice article about it that I'll put in the show notes. And they actually gave me an idea that I was just like, would it be cool to make a podcast where you do a deep dive into a different, weird, interesting music scene across the world with each episode? Anyone want to make this with me? Get in touch, because I might make this. Start with Witch House, go into different genres, different scenes. It sounds good, man. But yeah. Do go check out the work that Xanthe and Mixcloud are doing. They honestly are platforming some wicked people and communities and scenes and genres. And it really is a great way of, what was Xanthe's phrase she used? Breaking out that algorithm echo chamber of your own taste. It's good, man. It's good. All right. Okay, cool. That's it. Mondays, your new favorite day of the week. See you next time.
How Do I Music? A podcast by Well Nice Music.